Good day and welcome to this training video on Primal Pictures, where I will be focusing on showing you the histology content available on this platform. We will start off with cell biology, where we will learn about the different types of cells in the human body and the components that make up our cells. We will then jump into the histology learning module, and this is where we will take a tissue type approach to histology, and we will learn more about the types of cells that make up the different tissues of the human body. And then after that, we will take a systemic approach to the histology or the microanatomy. So for each of the system learning modules hosted here in anatomy and physiology, you will be guided through the gross anatomy, the microanatomy, and the physiology for each system, and I will showcase some of the microanatomy of the skeletal system because this is the example we will use today. And then once we are finished with that, we will also briefly jump into diseases and conditions where we have a few examples of histopathology or how our cells will be affected during different disease processes. Okay, but let's start off with our cell biology module. And here we are in cell biology. This module is going to focus on teaching you about the 10 body cell types and the functions of these cells. You will also learn about the structural components of the plasma membrane and how transport of material happens across this membrane. It will also go through the components of the cytoplasm and nucleus as well as their functions, and it will finish off with different types of cell division and the process of DNA replication and protein synthesis. So this is really the foundational knowledge for understanding the microanatomy of the human body. Here when we start off, we have this wonderful interactive image where we can learn about the different components that make up the cells of the human body. Now these elements will be gone through in more detail as you work through the different topics, but I just want to show you a few examples of the content available here. When we go through the types of cells, you will again be presented with a wonderful interactive image where you can explore the different components of the cells. And when you are wanting more histology slide style information like this one, we will find more of that when we jump into the histology module after this. But this over here is laying the foundation for helping you understand the different types of cells, their components, and their replication. I'm not going to go through the rest of the topics, but I think this gives you a good idea of the type of information available here for when you are laying that foundation. Let's now jump over into the histology module, where we will have more slides and more real-life examples to look at, and we can approach histology from a tissue type aspect. All right, and here we are in the histology learning module. So as I mentioned, this is where you can learn some histological techniques, and we will then approach histology from a tissue type aspect. It's very important to understand the techniques used when creating histology slides and some of the different stains used in histology. It will also help you tell the difference between the different types of tissues once you have a good understanding of histological techniques and the different stains used. I think that this is a particularly beautiful image, which is why I decided to showcase it here. But let's go take a look at one of the tissue types examples, and let's use epithelium. Now for each type of tissue, you will be given a range of interactive images or 3D models, which will help you understand the different components of the cells and of the tissues. But it's naturally very important to have real-life examples and to have histology images of these different types of cells. And we will find those as we work through the module. So here, for example, for simple squamous epithelium, we can take a look at a histology image, an interactive image, as well as a 3D model showing us an example of where this tissue would be found. And you'll see that as I scroll through, I have these same examples for each type of epithelium. Okay, so I'm not going to be giving you a histology lesson today. What's important is learning how to find the different type of content that you are looking for. And as I've already said, this is where we approach histology from tissue types. Now let's go take a quick look at approaching histology from a systemic level. Today we are using the skeletal system as our example, and when you use the systemic learning modules, you will be guided through the gross anatomy, microanatomy, and physiology of the system. But today I want to show you the microanatomy or the histology, and here we are presented with that quite early on in the topic. So here it's covering the microanatomy of bone and cartilage, and we have our learning objectives, which will tell us what we will go through. And here we will cover the features of osseous tissue, the cellular components of bone, identifying features and components of the bony matrix, distinguishing between compact and spongy bone, and we'll review the histological features of cartilage. So we start off here with a lovely 3D model where we can take a look at the different components of bone, and we can also move between different layers using these up and down arrows, which will allow us to focus on different components of the microanatomy. Then it moves on to the types of cells in bone tissue, and if you are wanting more real-life histology slide examples, again, as I mentioned earlier, that's where you should focus your learning on the histology learning module rather than the systemic learning modules. But I just want to give you an overview example of how the microanatomy is approached on the systemic level. So here you can see it's really going through the intricate and fine details about the components of our bony and cartilaginous tissue. We do still have some histology images available here, but like I said, these are focused on more so in the histology module. You may have noticed that there are interactive learning exercises throughout all of these modules, and these are here to really help you consolidate and test your knowledge before you move on to the next component of your learning. Okay, but I think that gives you a good idea of how the microanatomy is approached on a systemic level. Now let's go take a look at some of the histopathology content available in diseases and conditions. So now as we open up the diseases and conditions title, I do just want to mention that I never want to be misleading with the type of content available on Primal Pictures. And when it comes to diseases and conditions, it is not always approached from a microanatomy or a histopath perspective. However, you will often find details that explain what happens in the microanatomy during different disease progressions. So let's use hepatology as our example and take a look at liver cirrhosis. You will get a wide range of information for each of the diseases and conditions available here, but what I would like to show you is the microanatomy content. So after going through the gross anatomy and the normal microanatomy, we are then presented with what cirrhosis is, and here we have an image that is showing injury to the hepatocytes, which can lead to cell death and necrosis. We then get a more macroscopic visualization of what cirrhosis looks like, and we focus on the anatomical consequences. Once we've gone through the anatomical consequences, we will have overview PDFs available for the causes, symptoms, and treatments of each disease. So as I said, microanatomy or histopathology is not the focus here. However, you will find some microanatomy content. While we're here, let me show you another example. When we go over to neurology and we take a look at Alzheimer's disease, we also have some nice visual representations of what happens to the microanatomy here. So here we start off with the normal microanatomy, which is showing us a neuron, as well as the capillaries and the different types of cells that you will find in the brain. Now, once it tells us what Alzheimer's is, we do have a visual representation of what happens to the microanatomy in Alzheimer's. Here we can see the excessive buildup of the two types of proteins associated with Alzheimer's, such as beta amyloid plaques and neurofibrillary tangles. And that brings us to the end of this training video. I really hope that this was helpful in showcasing the type of histology content available on Primal Pictures, and I hope that this helps you either in your teaching strategies or your learning strategies. I wish you all the best in your future adventures with Primal Pictures and with anatomy and histology. Thank you very much.